All right. Hello there. Yes, I can tell this is on. I'm Patrick Kinsman. I'm currently chair of the Herron Visiting Artists and Exhibitions Committee. I wasn't involved with this event specifically, but I imagine you'll hear a number of introductions from me in the months coming. Tonight, I'm introducing Tibetan-born British artist Gonkar Gyatso. Gonkar Gyatso's current work comes from a fascination with pop culture, bringing attention to the mundane as well as the extraordinary. He has exhibited in galleries worldwide, including the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, Glasgow Gallery of Modern Art in Scotland, the Chinese National Art Gallery in Beijing. He has also participated in the Sixth Asia Pacific Triennial in Brisbane, Australia. Tonight's talk will be given in the form of a conversation with Fehnel Chair of International Studies at Heron or Tsultem. I'm excited to learn some new stuff. Please help me welcome to the stage Gonkar Gyatso and Orna Tsultem.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Gonkar, for accepting our invitation and coming to Heron School of Art. So I'll be just navigating the slides and asking some questions. So first of all, I just wanted to talk a little bit about your background as an artist. If you can elaborate on how you started as an artist, what did you learn first, and where did you go?
Yes, thank you and inviting me here, and it's been great. Gosh, it's a long time ago, and yes, I was born in Lhasa in the early 60s, and then I think those days, the school in Tibet is pretty, I mean, especially when we talk about art, it's quite limited. And I remember in our school, we don't really have art teacher. It's just there is one teacher he likes. He can draw, then he become the art teacher. And then I think also we only have one class a week, then it's only for maybe 1 or 2 hours. And so it really started from there. And then later, I think when I finished my middle school, I went for work in Lhasa, one of the museum. Actually, that's the only museum in Lhasa those days, as a exhibition tour guide. So when I went to that place, that museum, that was the first time I met, as I call, a real artist, which has been, trained. And then I think they really influenced me quite a lot. And so I used to go out with them to do sketches. And then gradually, I think then early 80s, I got into school in Beijing to do my undergraduate. It's called the Central Minority Institute in Beijing. Yeah.
And you studied Chinese painting there, after which?
Yeah, it was Chinese brush painting, yes.
I just want to show a little bit of geographically where we are looking at. So Lhasa and Tibet is, of course, prior to 1959, independent country. And so here in Lhasa, where his journey starts, and then he goes to Beijing to the north, right? Okay. And then what happens? So learning ink and brush painting.
Right. Yeah, it was I have to say, I mean, when I look back, I enrolled the school in 1980, and then the undergraduate took me 4 years to finish. then that was probably the time China really kind of opened up especially for the Western influence. And even though I remember at school, we still strictly learning a technique and the traditional kind of the practice. There is no much encouragement of new thinking or creativity at school. But once you walk out the door of the school, I mean, Beijing was full of surprise. And I remember, I mean, that was probably that 4 years time, we saw lots of Western movies, a lot of exhibition from West. And also, there is, during that time, there is a lot of art schools, professor and a teacher went to West for training or for visiting. So when they came back, they would bring tons of slides they took from museums and different places. So they would give a talk, public talk in a different art school. So we used to go there. So it was really kind of open mind period. And also we came across some of the Western philosophy, Western art history, even modern art. And so that really made quite a big impact for me that 4 years. Yeah.
And you went, your graduate degree was from London, right? When did it
No,
happen?
that was, oh, you mean the master?
Master's, right.
Oh, yeah, that was much later. Yes, 2000, yes. Yeah.
Where in London?
I think those days the school is called Central St. Martin Art and Design, but I think later I find out now they become a part of the London Art College. Yeah.
Okay. And you were based in London for a long time. Now you're based where?
In China and in Chengdu. Yeah.
So we're talking here, Chen. This is culturally Tibetan territory, but it's in China right here. So he's based right here. Okay, moving forward. So from your early work, your work uses the shape and form of the Buddha image. And so let's talk a little bit about that. So this is one of your early works of art, which uses the shape of a 17th century Tibetan Buddhist painting, right? Tell us how you started to be interested in Buddha image.
Actually, then we have to go back a little earlier. After I finished my study in Beijing, 84, then I went back to Lhasa, and I taught at the Tibetan University Art Department. And then when I went back Lhasa, I mean, Lhasa was also probably like Beijing. It's really opened up, especially the religious practice and also the monastery. Then that was probably I mean, it's kind of a weird or unbelievable kind of experience, because I lived in Lhasa for nearly more than 20 years, but that was the first time I saw monastery doors open, and the first time I saw the mural painting in the monastery and also the tankas. So that was quite a shocking experience, and so it's a. I mean, that couple of years, I think in the early or mid 80s, there's a lot of things happening. I mean, Beijing when I was there, then when I came back in Lhasa. So for someone probably just started as an artist, as a career, it was a pretty mind-blowing experience. You know, one way you certainly knew a lot of things about what's happening in the West. Then also inside China, in Beijing or in the other city, there is a lot of talk about open society. And then when I went back to Lhasa, then suddenly there is the religious opened up, and suddenly there is a yeah. So it was pretty amazing period. And then of course, I mean the beauty and also the colorful traditional painting, it's really draw us into the monastery, because it took me a couple of years to do that. And I mean, that was also one of the challenge. When you saw those beautiful things, then you don't quite know where to grab, you know, even though you're amazed about the technique and the composition and also the colors and the contents. But somehow as a contemporary artist, because then you don't quite know how to get influenced by this. So I think an early approach, I mean, I just kind of starting use the elements, took the elements from the mural painting and from the tankas, and then also I think the Buddha figure that's really started from there. So the Buddha figure seems much more easy to get access, I think. Yeah.
So Gonkar is mentioning the word tanka, and that's the traditional Tibetan painting, like you are seeing here on the slide. That's the Tibetan word for it, tanka. It's a hanging skull painting made specifically with iconographic grid lines. We'll see it in a little bit, and special composition and all that. So one of the earliest art historical account that introduces the world about your work is Claire Harris, right? Claire Harris, in this article from 2006, she writes about Buddha icons specifically connected to your own search of an identity. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit based on specific works. Just before this talk you spoke a little bit about tradition, how the search of tradition for Asian artists are very important, right? So this is another interesting work of yours. I don't even know exactly the title of it, so if you could tell us about it a little more.
Yeah, I think I started using those the stickers after quite a few years being in London. So I think I probably after I started my master in the Central St. Martin, and probably as we talked about before, one of the challenge for Asian artists when they go to West, the big challenge is how you're going to position yourself. Either you stick with the tradition, what you are doing, hold your ground, just ignore all the influence around you, especially in London, or you just dive into it, then try to get influenced by the culture where you live. So that was the choice front of me, and then it took me a little while to realize that, because first couple of years I was really holding my ground, you know, doing what I was doing in Lhasa or when I was in India, and then there is kind of realization one day. Suddenly I sort of, gosh, what I'm doing in the middle of the London, still doing the things which is not with me. And so that that's the kind of moment. Then I decided I should really open myself for my surrounding in London, and then it does kind of quite amazing. How do you call that, realization, and then I was searching how to combine those two, the tradition and also the Western kind of cultural elements into this. And of course, it's actually the whole process took me quite a long time and a lot of struggle. Then of course I later I discovered that stickers, which is in the early work, the one you showed before, probably that was that was one of those first pieces I did in my kitchen table, very small drawing, so kind of testing. Because emotionally, it was also a little difficult for me because, as we know, the sticker doesn't have very good reputation in those days, especially in London. People think they are very commercial, also they are very tacky, and also they are kind of Americanized or Japaneseized. So somehow you put those things into this holy Buddha, then I was being criticized. So you are doing something not quite respectable. So it took me a little while so that was one of those first pieces. I was really kind of, not quite sure, but I kind of liked it. So that was a try piece, and then gradually it became more elaborate. But the experiment really tells me the result was certainly my work get accepted by the people in London. Because suddenly when they look at Buddha, okay, maybe in distance they will say, oh, there is a Buddha. But when they get in closer, then suddenly they saw a lot of the familiar elements, which is they used to know so well. So that's kind of to make the connection. I think, so that's something I find it so interesting. And then I guess maybe the challenge I had, as I mentioned before, I kind of managed to combine a little bit in that direction.
So here's another. This is a more later work, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about this. You're now here doing not only two-dimensional work, but you're also doing some installations.
Yeah.
And some more texture, right? So.
And then, of course, with once I started with the stickers, then I think it's kind of opened up a lot of opportunity and the possibilities. Then I also play lots of texts, Chinese, English, or Tibetan, even some other languages, apply into the Buddha figure. And because I always do interested in text, whatever, sometimes, for instance, this one, I think there is some, I think the text actually is in Chinese. We don't see that clearly. And then that's, I think there's a whole article about, I saw in a Chinese newspaper, I think talking about how the government is supporting the Tibetan to improve their livelihood. And then that was the article I really apply for the Buddha figure. And then it's the, what do you call it? I don't know in America. In London we call, in English we call dummy, which is the kids. That's it. That's it, pacify, yes. So, yeah.
But not only Buddha images, but you take from Tibetan culture the other Buddhist motifs such as mandala, but with a very interesting twist on that, right?
Yeah, those actually much later. I think those work probably around 2011 and 12. Then that's quite a big piece. Actually, I did when I was in New York, and
Yeah, you lived in New York for some time, right?
yeah,
Was it 5, 6 years or more longer than that?
yeah, and I think probably this one is more talking about the environment, and then use the Mandela as a method to talk about the rapid, the fast development in Tibet, also in other part of the China. Yes.
So Claire Harris first time introduced the world to Gonkar in 1999 in her book, which I mentioned here. And then in the next one, in 2006, in the article, which all my students here, they read, she talks about this new perspective using you as a case study, transnational artists, because you are not based in one culture or you're not based in one country, you're constantly kind of itinerant. And so how do we then speak about or write or even consider about artist who is everywhere? So in all different continents. So he uses this word transnational artist in your case. And then she talks about this particular series in this article, and then which was later published as part of her next book in 2012, My Identity series, right? So we read from her, but let's hear from you now. When and how did it start this series? How many works in this series? So I'm gonna just flip through. So this is the first one, right? Which is based on the old photograph of a traditional Tibetan artist taken in 19th century. Then the second one, then third, fourth, and then there is a fifth one, right? Which is in Rubin Collection of Art. So tell us about this series.
Gosh, it's a long story, but I will just cut it, try to summarize. I think also one of the reasons in 96 I left Tibet, went to India. I think one of the main reason I was very confused about my identity. The reason I kind of guess somehow when you turn into late 20s and early 30s, certainly you realize you don't know much about your own background, because that's part of the education and also influence I completely missed. And so that's also created quite a lot of emotional, effect, and also raising quite a lot of questions. Then I thought maybe I can find that identity, the Tibetanness in maybe outside Tibet, and that's why I went to Dharamsala and spent a couple of years there. So when I was there, I came across that old photograph, the one before. That's the one, yes. This photograph actually took by an American photographer in the early 30s. Then apparently this artist, he's one of the master of the Dalai Lama's painter, live in Lhasa. So that was one of the book cover. I mean, when I saw that, suddenly it gave me kind of, I thought if I sort of he's the my imagination of the pure Tibetan identity. I mean, sitting cross-legged with long hair, with earring, then the table, the whole setting. I feel like that's what I should be, but in reality, it's probably impossible. I mean, I was smoking that time, and also I don't have a long hair, I don't have an earring, and even I couldn't sit cross-legged for half an hour. And also, when I got to Dharamsala, I find Tibetan, including Dalai Lama, actually, they all speak English and Hindi, and then some of the youngsters even couldn't speak Tibetan properly. And of course, then also I went to London, I met more Tibetan. Basically, I think the whole searching identity was little disappointing because I couldn't really find the pure Tibetan identity what I was looking for. And gradually, then I realized actually, when I look into myself, then I kind of see this. I saw there is probably 4 stages, which is first, this is the kind of my my imagination artist when I was in the traditional form. Then the second one, which is this one, which is I went through this stage. The first one I never went. It was kind of imagination. And this, the second and the third, the fourth,
So it is in India.
I physically went through. Then I thought that could be the interesting, you know, I think the conclusion was there is no pure Tibetan identity exist. It's because you're being influenced by where you live, by politically and culturally, and also the surrounding. So that was the kind of the conclusion, which is I made kind of peace for myself. Actually, after I did this in London in 2003. When I finished this piece, then I kind of made a kind of peace for myself. Say, okay, now I know what I am, and I've done this identity search, which is I've been doing quite a few years. So that was then that was a more surprising piece. That was much later, 2014. Then I started, I think from 2004, I started going back to Lhasa quite frequently. And then that's what I saw in Lhasa. I mean, the whole setting, and then also I was hoping to go back. Then I was imagined if I go back, I will be. That's what I'm going to be in Lhasa, you know, in a studio, surrounded with all the. Then it's I mean, all those objects being. I didn't really made up. That's what I saw in Lhasa with those Tanka artists studio.
Artist studios.
Yeah.
You were in Venice Biennale a couple of times.
Right, so, and the one
Yes.
time. This piece is specifically about political stance of Tibet vis-a-vis Beijing. Of course, Tibet was occupied by PRC in 1959. So the question of Venus Biennale is, of course, national pavilions and such artists, Tibet, they can participate as part of different exhibitions, but not as a pavilion, right? So which exhibition was that where you participated? Who was the curator?
Gosh, the curator was one of the German, I don't remember now, German curator. And then I was participating on not a pavilion, the international one, which is being selected by the curator.
Right. In 2009.
Yeah, 2009, yes.
So I show this in my classes a lot because my visual example of what transnational is this image. And here we got in the back with black and white, we have proportions of how to make a deity based on Tibetan proportion system. Traditional system of knowledge, but superimposed by this very colorful figure, which is actually taken from a photograph of an Iraqi soldier tortured by Iraqi detainee tortured by American soldiers. So tell us about this. This is very powerful image in my view. So.
Yeah, I think well, I also did this piece, I think, when I was in London. I mean, during the Iraq War, there is a lot of disturbing images came from Iraq, and then that was one of them. Then it was a little shocking because, I mean, as someone being always living in China and living with, you know, the Communist Party influence, and then we always betray America as a, no, I think it should be a different way. I mean, somehow I was kind of admire about the American democracy system and also the human rights ideology. And then suddenly you hear about the story, what's happening during that time. And so it kind of raised quite a lot of questions. And then that was the piece, I think, I did that time with the combination of the background. And I think the background is, if I didn't made a mistake, that deity should be the compassion one, I think. So I was trying to make a kind of contrast between that two ideology and also the human behavior, and then there's a lot of little quote and around them. Yeah.
Currently we're having a solo show at University of Denver in Colorado, curated by our colleague Sarah Magnata, and she has this wonderful book also published in conjunction. So let's talk a little bit about your current work, which some of it coming pre-COVID, but many of it coming during COVID, right? When you were locked down in China, in Chengdu. So you call them daily doodles. Yes. Sarah called them daily offerings.
All right, yeah.
And we find this kind of interesting Mickey Mouse image, which appears also in some of your early work as well. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to ask a little bit how you started to use, when, if you remember, started using Mickey Mouse image, and something about this pop art culture, the allure of it. Why pop art allure? Why attractiveness of that, using it towards your own messages and your art?
So it's really started in London around 2004 and 2005 when I first encountered with the stickers. And then those days, I think the sticker, what I can get hold of, it's mainly Disney, from Disney and images, and then some probably from Japan, and some from Europe, but mainly it's a Disney. Then of course there is the Mickey Mouse, which is the first really jumping out from that collection. And then that really also opened up for me looking kind of. I mean, when I was in London, I used to like to go to museums or galleries to check out art and to see what's going on. But somehow, since when I work with the sticker, and it turned my my view into more outside museums. I mean, for instance, like street art, graffiti, and then it still does actually. Even when I'm living in China, and I'm still. Be honest, I don't really go to museum that often nowadays. I find the things outside museums much more interesting. I mean, that including not just stickers, you know, the billboard, the magazine, the what people does in their toilet and or blackboard. So that really kind of opened up to me that direction. Then gradually I learned from those gradually then get me interested into pop art. I mean, of course, I mean like Anti-Aho and Anti-Aho. I mean, he's the kind of the master of that, and then through his work, then I discover a lot of different things. And what I really like them is I like the playfulness. That's something really draw myself into. That's also, I think, quite important for me as a practice. Before I used the sticker, when I was doing artwork, it was pretty painful. I don't really enjoy the whole process. And but somehow when I encounter with the sticker and the mix with the sticker doing something, I was kind of I'm doing the things with full joy, and then that also bring a kind of I think I take much lighter approach than I did before. Was too serious and also doesn't really enjoy the process. Then I realized, I mean, as an artist, probably the first thing you have to really enjoy what you are making and the process. Then that may also bring or reflect, or even the people look at your work, they might get that effect. That's what I kind of believing in nowadays, yeah.
So just a couple.
Also, what I noticed, you made a couple of sculptures for that exhibition, right?
Mm-hmm.
You work with foundry.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you can speak about
Yeah, that sculpture, yes, we made this year, and especially for the Denver exhibition. And I used to made a sculpture which is covered by stickers, just like my other work. And this one is a little different because this sculpture I was kind of try to tell about what we just went through, you know, during the pandemic, and also, of course, obviously the Buddha was wearing a mask, and then also this series there is a 3 Buddha with 3 different colors: red, yellow, and green. And the color actually in past 3 years in China, it's become so important for us because that's the app you have to have on your phone during the COVID, and so you have to constantly check your phone, see what's the color. If it's red, definitely you are in a big trouble. And if it's yellow, then you are not allowed to get access to public space and even couldn't go out your door. Then if it's green, of course you are safe to go. So that was the kind of I'm trying to, yes, try to tell that story. And then of course, as I said, at the beginning, when I'm first doing the design, it was just red and red head and the mask. So the rest of the body was just the pure kind of silver color. But somehow I thought it's a little too harsh. And so visually, I thought it's not very appealing. So I then adding some different color underneath the Buddha. So just try to make it kind of has a meaning, but at the same time, more visually appealing. Yeah.
So I have just a collection of couple of drawings from your exhibition. Your Buddha image definitely now is beyond just one identity, but more of a various concerns globally. I also see some references to Dada here, to Sham, right? And this references to your tradition of Tibetan traditional art. It's taken like the mandala is taken directly from a painting. But Buddha is completely different here. Buddha is not, I wouldn't say it's about your identity, it's more like a pandemic, it's a global search, global concerns, right? As we can see from here.
Yeah.
It's not about Tibetanness anymore. It's more about global problems we have.
Yeah, right? Actually, I think the Buddha, since I used the stickers, I feel the Buddha is not any more Tibetans. I also not any more religious. I try to make it more accessible for people non-Buddhist or people who doesn't know anything about Tibet. And so in the early piece, when you saw there is a Buddha, but when you look closer, actually the inside the collage or the content, actually it's not much to do with Tibet. It's much more about the place I live, like London, and also talk about the all kinds of things happening in London. Then that same thing happened when I moved to New York. So for me, I think Buddha, it's in my work, it's not a religious anymore. It's not much about Tibet. It's more, I'm just using that beautiful phone to channel what I want to say or what I want to display. Yes.
Just going through images again. There's another one.
Yeah.
And you always mark when you put these drawings. This is at the height of pandemic, looks like with a sign, and then it become more explicit about your anxiety, of all our anxiety at the time during the height of pandemic, the discussions about the vaccine, worries about that. And then of course, how we would defeat this virus. And here you're building, as Sarah also writes in her essay, built on your posters. There it was imperialist enemies. Here we have the global pandemic. I'm just going through so that we have time for questions. And very crowded compositions with different multilingual texts as a multilingual artist in Tibetan and in Chinese and some English also, and with Tibetan inscriptions, but you were telling me they're not about Tibet, they're about the slogans, right?
Yes, so some of the early drawing, which is much simpler, when I was doing those, actually I was in Thailand, in Phuket, Then just before the pandemic, then I moved back to Chengdu. Then suddenly, I mean, there's a lot of things happening in China, and then the drawings get much more complex, and there is more text. And but one of the things, each drawing has, I always quote one of the slogan, which is from the party chairman, and because that's, I'm trying to reflect the reality, which is, I mean, it's everywhere in China, and then some of the texts also, I think, from the social network, or I came across. So yeah, it's getting more busier and more complex.
Well, I guess that's it. We can take some questions. There's some more. I'll end here. We can take some questions from